Welcome back, my friends, to AA Recovery Interviews. I'm your host, Howard L., and I'm an alcoholic, sober since January 1st, 1988, one day at a time. I'm grateful you joined me. AA Recovery Interviews is the podcast where Alcoholics Anonymous members from around the world share their timeless and extraordinary stories of experience, strength, and hope. There are more than 200 hour-long episodes in this podcast series, each of which you can enjoy on aarecoveryinterviews.com and all podcast apps. Over the past few years, I've had the pleasure of getting to know my guest on today's show, Maryrose M. She's a fascinating woman whose backstory is remarkably free of the kind of family dysfunction that predestines so many of our paths towards alcoholism. In high school and college, her drinking was unremarkable. During her young adult years, her infrequent drinking and self-identified lack of desire to get drunk convinced her that she wasn't an alcoholic. Meanwhile, the disease lurked in the shadows, awaiting its terrible cue. As her disease emerged and then moved into her life, Maryrose quickly dismissed her sojourns with alcohol, claiming that her binges and blackouts were not that serious. She was quick to dismiss a budding relationship with booze, focusing instead on her dwindling abilities to function at her job and in her social life. As her alcoholism manifested in escalating binges and blackouts, Maryrose had endured a great deal of self-reproach and recrimination. She'd finally had enough. She dropped her pride at the door and stepped into the rooms of AA. That was over 5 years ago. She's been sober since. As you listen carefully to the rest of Maryrose's story, you may hear many similarities. In fact, that's what Alcoholics Anonymous is all about. It's the similarities that draw us together to help each other so that recovery can continue to work for us all. I feel you'll find Maryrose's story to be an inspiring example of what 5 years of a well-worked program looks like. So please enjoy the next hour with my friend and AA sister, Maryrose M.
Maryrose, alcoholic.
Do you say, hi, my name is, or just Maryrose?
No, I just always say my name. I just say Maryrose, alcoholic.
Hi, Maryrose. And that's what I always say. I don't bother to say hello or how are you. I say, hi, Maryrose.
Hi,
Thank you.
Howard.
Thank you so much for doing this today, for joining me on the AA Recovery Interviews podcast to share your experience, strength, and hope with people who are listening out there. And the nature of this particular podcast is I've been doing it for over 5 years now, and I've interviewed close to 200, maybe a few more than 200 people who have stories to tell that if you waited to hear their entire story 5 minutes at a time in meetings you go to with them, it would take you a lifetime to hear their entire story. But this way we get to talk about sobriety and getting sober and what it was like and what happened and what it's like now, or what it's been like during your period of sobriety. You look like too entirely nice of a woman to be an alcoholic. How did someone like you turn into an alcoholic?
It's a great question. And that's actually something I would always focus on, like why?
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 Yeah.
Why me?
Why you?
Because for me, I always thought, especially when I first got into this program, I kept hearing about people's stories and I kept listening to them, and a lot of stuff was very, it was a lot of trauma. There was a really bad childhood.
Yeah.
And so my thought was, well, yeah, I mean, I would drink too. That's my thought. My thought process was I would drink too if I had that happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I would drink too if my childhood was like that. So I almost felt like maybe I didn't suffer enough. I didn't have a reason to be an alcoholic. I didn't earn it. That was my thought process. And the first time I went to treatment, people would say that, like, oh, you don't look like you're an alcoholic. And at that point, I didn't know how to respond to it.
Yeah. And the thing is, we, meaning you and I and our listeners, know that you can't judge a book by its cover in AA, especially because there are a lot of people who've been sober for a while who really cleaned up well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm sure if we could see these people in their last days before they got sober, it would be an entirely different picture. But because we're seeing people after they're sober for a while, it's easy to look around a room, at least it is for me, and say, I can't imagine that guy or that gal being as drunk as they're talking about. It almost sounds, it can't be real, but that's what the disease is about, isn't it?
Yes, and I can tell you for me, before I got sober, my last few days, I was out on a bender, and I looked pretty rough.
Yeah.
I had the same clothes on for like 4 days in a row. I couldn't, my skin wouldn't take lotion. It was pretty bad.
It sounds pretty bad.
Yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, too. How long have you been sober now?
I've been sober 4 years and 11 months.
4 years and 11 months.
I'll have 5 years, April 4th.
April 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So it's April 4th of 2021.
Correct. It was an Easter Sunday.
Easter Sunday. Now, that was right in the middle of, that will date this program, but that's okay. That was right in the middle of COVID,
Correct.
Wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
COVID was still going on, and I had moved back from New York, and so I didn't have a job. And so during COVID, I feel like I took that opportunity to kind of continue to drink.
My goodness.
Until eventually, obviously, it caught up with me.
Yeah. So you started in the time of COVID. Did you start online, or had you actually gone to some live meetings before things moved online?
During that time, interesting enough, I have an aunt in the program. She's got 30 plus years, and I was staying with her sometimes. So during COVID, I would actually go to meetings with her. She had a group of friends, and we would have backyard meetings. And so I was playing a part, really. I was kind of participating in these meetings. I was riding my bike to these meetings. And then I would leave the meeting, and sometimes I would ride my bike and continue to ride my bike, and then eventually end up at a bar and kind of have some drinks, but I limited myself to 3 drinks per bar. And then I would go to the next bar. So
Sure.
I did that. And then sometimes I wouldn't drink.
Kind of serves its purpose, though, doesn't it?
But I did some online ones. I'll admit, too, one of the times I did an online meeting, and I was drinking at the time, and I totally got busted. And I was asked not to come back. It was mortifying.
So you were acting out in a Zoom meeting?
They could just tell I was drinking.
Okay.
I wasn't behaving poorly. I was behaving intoxicated.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Just poorly.
Yeah, and sometimes it's so evident. I mean, there was a guy in one meeting I went to it was based in London, but the meeting was, it was a really good meeting, but there was one guy who always liked to show up without a shirt on. And it was really, it wasn't like he was, Charles Atlas or anything either. It was like, man, go put on a shirt. And after a while, and his whole thing was, this is, AA can't tell me what to do, blah, blah, blah. And somebody finally said, look, we're here to get sober, not look at you half naked. And there's a million other meetings you can go to.
Yeah.
We invite you to do that. And sometimes we have to take that approach. You came in then during COVID, but you had already been exposed to AA?
That is correct.
When was the very first time you went to AA?
So the very first time I went to AA as an actual participant, if
Right.
you will, would have been in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I was living in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I had been in New York for several years, and I came back to Houston. My drinking had progressed. I was getting in trouble at work.
Mm-hmm.
My sister and my family had kind of mentioned that, I should maybe look at getting some help. So I came to Houston. I did do treatment here in Houston. And that was my first time going to an AA meeting. It was in treatment. They did AA meetings there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I finished that, and then I went back to New York.
Was that a 30-day program?
I did 30 days residential,
Mm-hmm.
and then I did PHP, and then IOP. And at that time, I had no idea what that meant. I kept getting the acronyms wrong, but I'm like, I don't know what this PHP is, or I just kept doing what I was told. I just followed, the course and did what I needed to do.
So had things got bad enough for you there in New York City that you had to get sober, and that's why you came back to Houston?
Things got bad. Well, yes.
Yeah.
So after I did treatment in 2017, I finished that, and I finished towards the end of December.
Yeah.
So I went back to work. I took a leave, went back to work in January, and then probably by the middle of 2018, I kind of started messing up again, started drinking again.
Yeah.
And then yes, eventually I quit my job.
Yeah.
Well, I did a mutual separation, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I was messing up again. So it was like, okay, I got to do something. And so basically I kind of got to them before they could get to me.
And this is after them giving you some leeway for going to treatment and...
Yeah, but they didn't know where I went. I didn't tell anyone.
Okay.
I was at a big company. We had an employee assistant program. So
Yeah.
I just went through the process. I went through the legal process, if you will, at work. And I didn't tell anyone at work. I didn't tell any of my friends. Actually, there was basically one small group of friends that knew that I was going, because I happened to be with them when I kind of broke down and said, okay, maybe I should go get some help. But it was really because I was about to get in trouble at work back in 2017. So I was like, okay. And it was great. It was 3 months of just relax, didn't have my phone. I didn't have to worry about work. It was great.
So were you on board with it, or were you just playing the game? Or
I was definitely not on board.
No.
I still did not think I was an alcoholic. I knew I'd gotten to a point where I needed to do something, and I pretty much knew that I would be protected if I went to treatment from the job, because I was kind of messing up at work. So I was like, okay, I got to the point where it made sense to do something. And so I was like, okay, I'll go.
how do you get along in that environment? When you're being lectured at about the disease that deep down you know you've got, but you still don't want to get sober, what does that feel like?
That's a good question. I never thought of that. I could just follow along. I definitely played the part.
Yeah.
I could relate to some of the stories, but I feel like I would still hear stuff about, some of the childhood, the trauma that the people that I was in treatment with had.
Yeah.
And I think I was like, this is easy. Like, it was easy not to drink when I was in treatment, even when I did the PHP and IOP.
So you stopped, you actually did stop?
I did, yeah.
So there were no sneaking drinks or
Nope.
anything else?
No, I was so compliant. I was the best student ever. I showed up, I participated, I shared.
So in that compliance itself, wasn't the actual desire to stay sober?
No, I knew I wasn't done.
Huh.
I knew it was just, I'm here, I'll participate, I'll be a part of. But by no means during that first time in treatment did I think I was done.
Did they ever confront you? I mean, because you're getting into these small groups, the family groups with therapists and everything else, and usually something like that does come out,
Yeah.
where they're really leaning on you in a small group or a one-on-one. Are you sure you're done drinking? Whatever.
I don't think I was ever asked that question.
Really?
I never got called out. Like, I feel like I knew how to play the game.
Yeah.
I knew, I could say, and I participated, and I was honest enough. I wasn't honest about, hey, I really have no plans not to drink again.
Right.
Like, there was never I didn't say that. I was like, hey, I'm just here because of it, and I do plan on drinking when I go back to New York. I never said that out loud.
Sounds to me like you knew what your future held at that point, if you were going back to
Yeah.
New York to drink. Wow.
And it wasn't like I was thinking, oh, right when I get back, I'm going to go back and drink. I just knew I wasn't done. And when I got back, I didn't drink for a while.
Really?
And I hit some meetings. I met some people. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't hard.
So we're talking about relatively recent history. We're talking about within the last 4 or 5 years now that all this kind of took place.
Well, that was back in 2017.
That was 20. Okay, so
so
we're
when I
talking.
got back to New York in 2018.
Okay, so 9 years ago. So,
Yeah.
so in 2017, what was going on in 2017 that made you say, okay, I think maybe I ought to get this help?
I basically let my sister kind of make the arrangements. Like, she found the place in Houston. So, and because they live here, so I have most of my family's here. And really the place that I went to was they took care of everything. They called the EAP. I don't think I even made a phone call. So they took care of that for me. But it was basically the night that I agreed to go. I was going to see some friends. A friend of mine just had a baby, and I was going to go see the baby with some other friends. And I had kind of pre-gamed that night. So I was drinking before I went there. Then I think I even stopped at a bar before I got there. And then I realized I was way too, drunk to go see this baby. And so I think I called my friends from the sidewalk. This was in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
And they came out there. And I stayed the night at my friend's house. We called my sister. She was going to start making the arrangements. This was on a weekend, and I kind of knew I was going to, I think I was going to have to answer to some stuff at work on Monday. So it just kind of made sense. I stayed the night with my friend, but then I ended up taking a bottle of wine from them, drinking it, and then I left in the middle of the night, took an Uber back to my apartment, ended up going to treatment, take a flight in. And I had stopped drinking before I went to treatment. So I stopped drinking. I came in like stone cold sober, which I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So I was able to not drink, get on the plane, not drink, show up there, and came in completely sober. Come to find out, most everybody did not do that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What did you think of that? I mean, here everybody came in having finished off whatever dregs that they had in the bottom of the bottle. What were your thoughts about that?
I mean, my first thought was hell. I didn't know. I would have done that. Though, probably not, because my sister was taking me.
Right.
And I still had a lot of pride. Like, pride is a big part of my story. And so I wanted to show her, too, hey, I'm going to go get help. But look, I'm not even drinking right now. I'm good. I can go for, weeks at a time. It wasn't an everyday thing for me. Still some binge drinking. Consequences were starting to happen. I was kind of messing up at work and getting called out a little bit, but it was still not an everyday thing. So in my mind, it was like, okay, it just got a little carried away.
So from the time that you first decided that you wanted to get sober or do something about your drinking so the consequences would stop, to the time at which you actually picked up the next drink, how long a period was that of sobriety?
It was probably a good 3 months.
3 months?
A little over 3 months.
Okay. Were you getting your chips?
I was.
You were?
Yeah.
Did you have a sponsor at the time?
No, I never got a sponsor. I did ask someone, and she wasn't able to. And then I was like, well, guess I'm not going to get one.
Well, now, to what extent did you think that getting a sponsor would or wouldn't be a good idea?
You just kept hearing, like, get a sponsor, people saying, like, get a sponsor, you should get a sponsor. So I met another woman. I think I liked what she had to say, and she seemed nice, and she was too busy, so she wasn't able to do it. And then I really just never tried again.
And when people would ask you if you had a sponsor, what would you say?
People really didn't. Yeah, I mean, maybe every once in a while. So this was in New York City.
Yeah.
I was going to meetings every once in a while. Some of them were bigger than others.
You can hide out pretty easily.
You can hide out pretty easily.
Yeah.
I wasn't on anyone's radar. I was able to still kind of, present really well and, share enough if I did get called on. I don't even remember sharing that much when I was in New York, but I was still kind of just going and being part of the fellowship, going to meetings, and I really enjoyed the meetings. Like, they were great. I loved hearing what other people had to say. I could chime in with some stuff. I could relate to maybe some drinking too much sometimes. I don't know what I thought I was trying to prove, but it was short-lived. And I can't remember when I kind of stopped going. I don't know if I picked up a drink and then stopped going to meetings, or if I had just kind of stopped and just kind of faded, faded away. Yeah.
So that was kind of a blur.
Yeah. And I'd go to work things, and I would go to the bars like I used to, and I wouldn't drink. And I remember being at a bar with some work colleagues, not good friends, but I remember someone really trying to force a drink on me. Hey, try this. And I'm like, no. And I had to fight them off, It's like, oh, who's going to try to force you to have a drink? But it was pushed on me pretty hard, and I didn't do it. So then it's like, see, I don't have a problem. I can say no when someone shoves a drink in my face.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine.
So you were a functional alcoholic, pretty much.
Someone said, I think I heard someone say something like there's no such thing, but I was able to drink and get away with it without severe consequences.
Yeah.
But, function, yeah.
Yeah, function. I
Enough,
mean,
yeah.
whether it's in a job or a marriage or any other kind of relationship or situation, being functional means you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You can participate in it
Yeah.
and you can be drunk. But being functional alcoholic also implies that you can quit whenever you want, because if you can still function while you're drunk or while you're drinking, that's proof enough that you don't have a problem.
Yeah.
It's when you start falling down on the job and stuff like that it makes a difference. That brings us up to when you came in at 2017 for your first meetings, and you didn't get a sponsor. Do you think, looking back, it would have made a difference if you had had a sponsor, or do you discount that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I say no because technically I did when I was in the treatment center, because it was 90 days that I was here in Texas, away from work.
Right.
After I finished the residential, we continued with the PHP, the IOP, and they're like, get a sponsor. So I asked a woman, I think I only met with her like once.
Yeah.
And I remember telling her, I was like, I have faith that everything's going to be okay. And she kind of called me out on it. She's like, well, what are you doing here then, or something? And I was just like, I know I'm going to be okay. I said that to her. I don't know if that was just arrogance or what. She didn't buy it, and then I always knew I was going back to New York.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't staying in Texas, so what was the point of getting a sponsor and trying to work with someone while I'm here in Texas when I know I'm going back to New York?
So who were you looking to satisfy with this whole process of leaving New York, coming to Texas, going to treatment, and everything else? At the end of the day, who were you trying to impress or prove something to, or
Family.
Yeah.
The ones that were worried, which was but mainly my immediate family.
So you were, let's say, codependent enough to care about what they thought about
sure.
your drinking,
Yeah.
to the extent that you actually went and got treatment.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It was that, and I knew I would have protection from work. Like, they couldn't fire me.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
having that was like a combination. And I did it for a while. I'm like, see, I can do this.
Yeah.
It's not a problem.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
So this is when you get back to New York.
Yeah.
That you start drinking again.
In 2018.
In
probably
2018.
3 or so months. So technically we're looking at 6 months of sobriety. I was in treatment for 3 months. I didn't drink for another 3 months. And then, started off I think I was at a friend's and just wine.
And so you proved it to yourself and those around you
Yeah.
and your family that you didn't have to drink.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So you got sober for other people, not for yourself.
100%.
Yeah, okay. That's a common refrain in AA. And it is. I mean, the loss of a relationship, or the impending loss of a relationship if you don't get sober. I mean, that's what my situation was. My wife and I had been married for a year and a half, and things were already deteriorating and going downhill. And she kept saying, you got to stop, you're an alcoholic. And I kept saying, I'm not an alcoholic, your father was an alcoholic. And trying to gaslight her with the idea that it was all in her mind, and that she had me confused with, because her father was an alcoholic and a falling down, drunk in the gutter type alcoholic, and
A real alcoholic.
When I first met her, he had 4 years of so-called sobriety in AA, and then he went off the deep end, and he died very tragically, but as an alcoholic, and everybody knew it. Yeah, so my wife said, you can continue to drink and drug if you want to, but I'm not going to be here. And she meant it. And I thought, okay, I've got the choice. And I was given the choice of that or my drugs and alcohol. Fortunately, I picked right, and I've been sober since. But that was one of those, you're doing it for somebody else, but it turns into you doing it for yourself.
Yep.
Right, so that's what happened with you.
Yes. And then it was really just to kind of show that I could do it.
So that you felt like maybe that would be enough to prove to people that you didn't have a problem, let's move on.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I get that.
And it worked.
Yeah, I guess it did.
Yeah.
You started talking earlier when we began about what sounds like your family of origin and what it was like to be in that environment. And I wanted to ask you about that. To what degree is there alcoholism or substance abuse disorder in your childhood home?
There was none in my childhood home.
No.
Outside, so my mom's family, my aunt is an alcoholic. Probably a couple of uncles on both sides, but nothing in the immediate family. My dad would drink some beer every now and again. My mom couldn't really tolerate alcohol, so she didn't drink it much, because as soon as she did, she got really loopy. So I'm like, maybe she was an alcoholic, and she just stopped drinking, So I feel like she had a reaction to alcohol when she drank it. She just didn't keep drinking it.
So when you were a kid, what did you know about alcoholism? Or if someone had said to you, Maryrose, what is a alcoholic? What would you have said?
I think for me, the idea of an alcoholic, and you hear this all the time, is someone who, the paper bag, someone who can't do anything with their lives. They have to drink every day. They're not functioning. They don't have a job. That's, I think. And I was exposed to AA, though, when I was a teenager, if I'm not mistaken, or very late teens, because my aunt got sober. And so I remember going to an AA meeting to hear her pick up a chip or something. And maybe it was birthday night, something to that effect. So I'd been there before. I'd been to a meeting before.
Had you been around her when she was drinking or drunk?
No.
So you didn't have any real exposure to drinking or drunkenness in your home?
I did not.
Now, among the siblings, how many kids in the family?
I have two sisters.
Older, younger?
I'm the middle child.
You're the middle child, okay. So was there anything in their behavior growing up or anything that might have led you to believe that one or all of you would have any kind of issues with that?
Nothing at all.
So tell me about what family life was like in your family when you were a child and adolescent.
Sure. My dad's from New York, so he was born and raised in the Bronx, and then they moved as adults to Texas. The whole family did. So I'm born here, and he never brought his work home. Yeah, he never talked about it. We barely know he was that. So he just did the job. He didn't bring it home. We didn't talk about it. He ended up working overnights a lot. I can tell you my mom definitely struggled with a lot of depression. So a lot of depression. She grew up with 7 other siblings. The age range was 20 plus years from the oldest to the youngest. Grandmother was, staunch Catholic. My grandfather was at Pearl Harbor. And she's the second oldest, I should say. Anyhow, so she definitely dealt with a lot of low self-esteem. She was, she'd kind of gained a lot of weight, didn't think a lot of herself, and then ended up going to some kind of treatment for mental health. And I want to say I was in 5th grade. I feel like my sisters remember this more. I don't know if it's because I blocked it out or just kept, going on with my life. But she was there for a while, and I couldn't even tell you how long. We did go see her once. So she struggled with that, I think, her whole life, with depression, to the point of having to be hospitalized and doing residential there.
How long was she hospitalized for?
I don't know. Maybe 1 to 3 months. That's what's interesting. I bet my sisters would know, but I really have no idea.
When you look back and notice that in the family history, how were you affected by her mental state and the depression?
I think it made me sad. It just made me so sad that she had struggled a lot with feeling loved from her parents, probably from my dad. My dad was a great father.
Right.
Wasn't really a great husband.
Yeah. Are your parents still alive?
No, they both passed.
Yeah.
Which my mom's passing kind of leads to my progression.
Yeah.
So, but my dad passed 2 years ago. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like at the point when it was happening with my mom, I just, again, remember being sad for her. Because my mom was she's such a nice person. She made sure everyone was treated fairly. She made sure we all had like the same Christmas presents, and she wanted to make sure that we all felt equal love and attention from her, because she did not get that, which I imagine it's got to be hard when you're one of 7, and then you probably end up helping raise your younger siblings. Yeah. And she made sure all my cousins were taken care of, because there was a lot of drug and alcohol use from her siblings. And so at one point or another, my grandparents lived next door to us. My dad gave them a piece of land, and they built there. And then so we grew up next to my mom's mom and dad. And so at one point or another, like almost every one of her siblings lived with them with their kids. So we had, we got to hang out with our cousins and play a lot with the cousins. Yeah, so it was great. But again, my mom made sure they were all taken care of, and my family, her family let her.
We'll be right back. My friends, if you're enjoying my AA Recovery Interviews podcast, check out my latest audiobook, Alcoholics Anonymous, the story of how more than 100 men have recovered from alcoholism. This is the word-for-word, cover-to-cover reading of the first printing of the first edition of the Big Book, published in 1939. It's a relaxing and meaningful way to listen to the Big Book anytime, any place. Have a free listen at Audible, Amazon, or iTunes. While you're there, enhance your program with another audiobook I produced, Lost Stories of the Big Book, 30 original stories missing from the 3rd and 4th editions of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's an engaging audiobook that brings these stories to life for AA members who've never seen them. These timeless testimonials were originally cut to make room for newer stories in the 3rd and 4th editions. But their vitally important messages of hope are as meaningful today as when they were first published. Many listeners will hear these stories for the very first time. Listen to a free sample of Lost Stories of the Big Book on Audible, Amazon, or iTunes. It's also available as a Kindle book or in paperback from Amazon if you'd like to read along. You're gonna love it. And we're back.
There's a lot of resentment came up on my 4th step against my mom's siblings, especially when she got sick and like feeling like they didn't really show up for her, when all she ever did was take care of them and make sure they were taken care of, and she wanted them to feel loved. Overcompensating. This is the story in my head, that overcompensating for what she didn't get growing up. So she never wanted anyone to feel like that.
I understand that. My mother was somewhat the same way, where she had a real difficult time showing her own kids the love and attention and the warmth that you would have from an emotionally available parent. She didn't have that. But when it came to other people, man, she would bend over backwards and do whatever she had to do to make sure that the other people were happier and satisfied, much more so than she ever was from the effort of doing it. And that was always kind of sad too. So I know what you mean when you mention that sadness. So you grew up with the siblings. Did either one of them ever end up an alcoholic or drug addict?
No.
Well, that's good.
Not at all. There was some heavy drinking after our mom passed. Like both my sisters participated in heavy drinking.
They did.
Yeah. So and it was and I was always heavy drinking. So it was like.
But it wasn't alcoholic drinking. It was just heavy drinking?
For them, yeah.
For them?
Yeah.
Okay, I get that. So when was the first time that you took a drink, let's say on your own volition, not just a sip at the table somewhere, but actually took a drink of alcohol?
You're going to love this, Howard, because I bet you can guess what age it was.
14.
No, 13.
13,
yeah,
that's
13.
Right.
I remember hearing you say that. I'm like, he's right. 13 is the number.
Yeah.
13 is the number. And I was almost 14, to be fair.
Okay,
I was done with 8th grade.
Right.
So going into high school. It was this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with family. I have a lot of older uncles and cousins. Because my mom's family was so big. So variety. I have an uncle who could be my cousin. You know how that works. And they were seniors in high school. He might have already been out of high school, but I went to like a senior party because I was with family.
Yeah.
And I think my sister was there regardless. It was at a house, some of the parents were gone, so we went to their house and they were playing quarters. And so that was my first thing. And I'm pretty personable, and I'm like, all right, let's go. How do you play quarters? And so I start playing quarters.
Now tell us how to play quarters.
Yes.
For anybody who's listening and doesn't know.
So I'm trying to get the quarter into a shot glass, bouncing it on the counter. You try to get the quarter into the shot glass, and if you don't get it into the shot glass, you have to take a drink.
Oh, boy.
And it was beer.
Beer, okay.
Couldn't tell you what beer it was, and so obviously I did not make a lot of them.
Right.
I missed a lot, so you drink every time you miss.
Yeah.
So needless to say, I got a little tipsy, and I couldn't tell you that. It's funny because I remember it, so it's I'm like, well, obviously I felt some type of way because I can remember it, and I can remember laying down on the couch in the house, and I remember the room spinning. But one of the things I couldn't identify or tell you, and I heard this a lot when I first started going into, the rooms where people are like, I remember that first drink, and I remember it changed everything, and I remember it made me, this was the answer. I don't have any of those feelings. Like I had a pretty good, childhood. I had friends, I played sports, I did well in school, so it didn't change anything for me other than it was pretty cool. I like how it felt. The room spinning was kind of cool. The next day I was actually fine. I didn't drink enough to get sick or anything.
No blackout or anything?
No. When I first started, my journey in recovery, I would, focus on that. I was like, I never had those feelings. I didn't feel like this was everything I've been waiting for my whole life. And I heard that. And so it's interesting what I chose to hang on to of what I heard in the rooms, because I definitely looked for the differences and not the similarities.
Yeah. And there are plenty of them around.
So true.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, see, I didn't think this was the best thing ever. I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
But now I'm looking like, well, I remember it. Like, what else do I remember from 13? Not much, but I can remember this. So I'm like, okay, interesting.
So was there that sense of you could hardly wait to do it again?
No, I don't have any of those memories. It was nothing where I was like, game on, let's keep doing this. I want to do it again.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I don't think I did until a wedding, and I was 14 now at the time. And I just happened to be at my cousin's wedding, and they put me and my other cousin in charge of serving champagne.
For yourselves.
Little idiots. They didn't know any better. Who knew? We just started serving champagne to people, and then we started taking drinks ourselves. And then it was like one for them, one for us, until the end of that night. Like, I don't know if she was with me or not, but we ended up, like, I had a bottle. I basically had my own bottle. And that night, I got really, really drunk, and it was really bad. And the hangover the next day was really bad.
Did you get into trouble for that?
No, just kind of like, because I was with family.
Right.
It was all family. Right. They just took care of me, and but it was pretty bad. I felt really, really bad the next day. Yeah.
So did that feeling dissuade you from further use in the near term, or did you go right back to it?
I don't remember, because it wasn't like, at this point, I think I was in high school, but I can't recall thinking that, I'm never going to do that again. Maybe I was like, maybe I won't drink that much again. But I don't have a vivid memory of thinking, I can't wait to do it again, or I'm never going to do it again. Yeah. And I never sought it out.
Yeah.
It was never my idea to drink.
Yeah.
But if the opportunity, like, I'm looking back at my even high school, it was never something that I was like, let's go get some drinks. But if it was there, then, I would participate.
Was the crowd that you were hanging with, were they conducive to drinking, or were they not involved in that?
No, everybody I hung out with, went out with, and we would go. This was because I grew up in a rural area, so a lot of people had land, and we would go to these empty fields, and people would bring drinks, and then we would drink.
Stand around a pickup truck.
Yeah, pretty much.
And drink.
Yeah.
That's a common refrain for people who grow up out in the rural areas. Is fill the bed up with ice, and
definitely
everybody brings drinks and beer. So through high school, I mean, if we move ahead a number of years, what's the next block of time in your life? Is it high school, college? Is it high school only, or what?
Yeah, high school, college.
Yeah.
Then.
And who did you
career.
Did you hang with a specific group of people during those times, or?
Luckily, I look back and I was pretty fortunate because one, I still did relatively well in school. So
Yeah.
I was in some honors classes. I was an athlete.
Wow.
And I was in the band in junior high, and I went to the same school my whole life. So from kindergarten to 12, K through 12, I was in the same school system.
Okay.
So I had a lot of friends growing up that had kind of grown with us over the time. And I had definitely groups of friends. I was able to kind of, acclimate to each group, if you will. So some of them drank more than others. Some didn't drink. And it just happened to be whatever happened. And I still did well in school, and I played sports, so it wasn't like this was happening all the time. And when we were, in the season, I don't think we participated a lot, but there were definitely moments like at 16 and 17 where some of the weekends it was worse than others.
Mm-hmm. And then you went off to college after that?
I did.
And was that completely away from home, or was it nearby enough that you could still interact with your family?
Yeah, it was close enough. The first year I went, I lived with my sister. I was going to community college.
Yeah.
And then we did that, I think, for a year. And I really I was still kind of dating my high school boyfriend at the time. And there was definitely some nights where I drank too much, but nothing substantial happened at that time.
Did you have future plans with him at that point?
Well, not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you went off to school. He stayed back home, or did he go?
Yeah, he was a senior in high school.
Okay.
I was a year older than him.
Okay.
And he was still there. And then we dated for a while, my first year, and then it might have been the whole year. It was maybe 16 months, I want to say.
Yeah.
That we dated.
That's how it was for me.
Yeah.
Well, I went to the same college as my high school girlfriend, who I'd been with for 18 months. And I thought we were going to get married. There was something in there that made me think that. I was terrified. But it turns out that first year in college was all bets are off. And that's when she and I broke up, because I couldn't sustain a relationship with the amount of drugs and alcohol I was using, which she didn't use. So that fell apart pretty quick. But there was more pickings in college. What was your college social life like?
The first year, I probably just hung out with him mostly, so it was I'd go home a lot on the weekends, because it's an hour away, so it wasn't that bad. And then we broke up, and then the next year I went to state, so I was living in Austin with some girlfriends from high school and another guy, so there's 4 of us, and again, it was just drinking socially, and no big deal.
So no real consequences
No.
from your drinking during that time?
Correct.
So you didn't get in trouble with the authorities over any behavior?
Nope.
That's commendable.
None at all. And then the following year, I went up to West Texas, and that's where I finished school.
I see.
And at that time, the first consequence I had, I was dating a guy. He was going to A&M, so we'd see each other when I came home. And it was over Christmas, and we went to the rodeo. And we had his younger brother with us, and we went to a field party. Then we were going to take his brother home and then go back to it. And I was already, at this point, had been drinking the whole night. And he's driving. We're driving to get his brother home, and we barely leave where the party is, and the road teed. There wasn't a stop sign. This was out in the middle of nowhere. And he doesn't stop, and he continues, so he hits the ditch. And I don't have my seatbelt on. So I basically kind of hit the windshield, hit the dashboard, and I have no memory of it. And then I wake up in the hospital. So that was probably the first real consequence. But I wasn't driving. I wasn't driving. I imagine he was drinking just as much, but he'd never got in trouble either.
So he wasn't seriously injured?
No. I was the only one. I broke the windshield with my head. My hair was hanging from it. I actually cracked the dashboard with my face. I lost some teeth.
Oh, jeez.
But I was fine. I was beat up pretty bad. I looked really bad.
Yeah.
So it wasn't pretty. And what's funny, though, is I always told myself, I'm like, well, I bet because I was so drunk, though, and so relaxed. And so when I hit the dashboard, I didn't stiffen up, you know.
Yeah,
and so
like one of
it
those
probably saved my life. Not that I wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah, like one of those crash dummies, right?
I was a total crash dummy, for sure.
So you were fortunate that you weren't going faster because you might have gone through the windshield. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If we had, luckily, we had just left the party, so there wasn't that much of the road that we were on.
Wow.
But he still, totaled the truck.
Now is this your boyfriend?
Yes.
The one who you dated in high school?
No, different guy.
Okay, different guy. So that's a pretty serious consequence of drinking, even though you weren't the driver.
Correct. And because I wasn't, the consequence was just I looked beat up.
It was a pretty serious consequence, but not one that you created, although you might have been able to say something to the driver or whatever. But so how long did it take you to heal from all that? That sounds pretty traumatic.
It was pretty traumatic. Luckily I didn't break any bone. Actually, technically, I broke some of my jawbone, upper jawbone. So I had to get a lot of extensive dental work.
Okay.
And that was pretty painful. My face was swollen for a long time. Still, till this day, the left side, there's still some scar tissue on the left side of my face that I can. Yeah,
it feels a little numb.
Yeah. So never fully recovered, really. But yeah, it was. So I went back to school, and just continued with And the college career was the same thing. It was like socially, I would drink. I would have, I would get drunk when I did drink.
Yeah.
But again, it was nothing that I sought out.
Yeah.
But when I participated, there was definitely I did not know when to stop drinking.
Yeah, I get that, and especially when you're looking back, sometimes I think people try and find things that would make their stories a little bit juicy or a little bit more dramatic or whatever. Some people don't. One person I interviewed, I said, you had such an idyllic childhood and the rest of adolescence and everything else. You've had such why would anybody who's got that good a life become an alcoholic? He said, because I drank too much beer, and it was that simple. So talk to me, Maryrose, about the years after you graduated, and maybe take us up to the point at which you first got into AA at 2017.
Basically, I graduated college, but there was a point where I didn't finish a certain course, and so I got it incomplete. I had to go back and do it.
Yeah.
So some of the, and that was me like lying and manipulating and not doing my work like I was supposed to do, so that kind of stuff, and not telling anyone about it.
Yeah.
Like I didn't tell anyone, so the secret keeping started. Just drinking socially,
right.
Getting drunk almost every time I did.
Uh-huh.
And, looking back, like there was definitely some situations where I got myself into, especially in high school, with the opposite sex and, having stuff happen to me that I didn't necessarily want or I wasn't, aware of or I didn't consent. But again, I would basically like blame myself. Like I put myself into that position. I drank too much. And so I kind of took the blame for all of that. That was all me. That was my fault. And
do you know going into these situations that might be the outcome, and yet you went along with it anyway?
No, these are, anytime something like that happened, I mean, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
Like I was always with, groups.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting enough.
Yeah.
So I wasn't taking, other than, the alcohol consumption, I wasn't going out and taking, risk.
Right.
Putting myself in that position.
Yeah.
But by me drinking enough and, not having my whereabouts or my,
Was marijuana or other drugs involved?
No, I could not. I mean, I've tried weed. It did not agree with me.
Good.
Anytime I did try to smoke it, if I was drinking, which more than likely I was, I would get sick. And then I think when I tried it, it was always too much. I would always get petrified, and I always felt like I was petrified. So I joked about, man, I just feel petrified. I hated it. I did not like it. I tried it several times to see if maybe the next time it would be different.
Yeah.
But it never was. So
Okay,
I never got into it.
one less thing to have to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was not my thing. I never understood how people could do it. It did not react the same way that other people who did it loved it so much. I just never had that experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Maybe because I smoked alcoholically and I always did too much when I did it. I don't know. That's my theory.
That's sometimes the theory, too.
Yeah. I like it.
So you continued your drinking on an ongoing basis. You mentioned earlier about being a binge drinker.
Yeah.
So it's not like you were drinking every night of the week?
Correct.
Right, okay.
Oh, yeah. We're talking, years. I would just, when I drank, I just would get, really drunk. And I can remember at certain times thinking, okay, I want to really pay attention this time. And then when I get too drunk, when I feel it, I'm not going to drink anymore. And then I remember thinking, okay, I've had several drinks, but I still feel good. I'm aware. And so I'm going to keep drinking, cut to blackout. I wake up, I'm back in my place and I have no, memory of how I got home. But that never made me think that I was an alcoholic.
Did you know going into evenings out that there was going to be a chance that you would black out? Or was it always a surprise to you that you woke up without knowing how you got home?
It's funny. I feel like, I want to say I didn't think it would happen. I always felt like it was a surprise, which is talks about my insanity, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I did it again. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially when you're not facing a whole lot of consequences.
Yeah.
So the period of time in between, like when you got out of college and 2017, what was going on in those years? Can you kind of sum up was it just working or what were you doing during those years, and how was what you were doing affected by alcohol, if it was?
Yeah, I was working. I moved to New York in 2003.
Yes.
And I got roommates. I worked. It just kept moving along. Everything just kept moving along, and it was just a repeat. I feel like there were certain years maybe I didn't drink at all. And I wouldn't say at all, but I don't have a lot of memories of drinking a lot. I think I've had periods where I think sometimes I was eating, like kind of some binge eating at one point. And I don't have a lot of, memory of alcohol. And I can tell you my mom got diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's in 2007. And I was in New York and we went down and she got diagnosed, and I was questioning the doctor as if he didn't know what he was talking about. And then I took a leave of absence from my job and started to go down to help her. Mm-hmm. And I was there maybe 2 months or something. It was during that time. So this was in 2014. I took that leave. And that's when I can say that I noticed towards the end of the night, I was staying with my mom and dad. I was helping my dad get my mom ready and put them to bed. Mm-hmm. And then when I did that, I started, I would end my night with a bottle of wine. My sister and I just talked about this the other night, and she would too. So she remembers it. So that's when I can identify actually going to the alcohol for comfort. Mm-hmm. So that started, and then I went back to New York, and then my mom died a couple of months later, and then I can tell you then the drinking progressed. Then I started drinking more. I started really getting into rosé. I used to buy cases of it, fill up my wine thing, and it was great. I would show it off, and
sure.
My nickname was Maryrose. People would greet me, Maryrose, and I was
great.
Yeah, because I knew I liked the dry rosé.
Uh-huh.
So the progression started then, and when I started drinking more and more, I started going out more, and then eventually, it became where I just wanted to drink all the time.
So it became problematic after your mother passed away.
Yes.
And after you started drinking a bottle of wine every evening. Yeah.
And that's when I started to get in trouble at work. Technically I got promoted first.
Yeah.
You know, I had this great promotion. I was a big deal. I was doing, you know, I was a general manager for a really big development company in New York, and I was managing 2 high-rise properties on the Upper East Side. I had a 500-unit building in Chicago. I was flying back and forth to Chicago. I was, you know, I got involved with a guy who I had no business getting involved with, but he wouldn't go away. So, and I got to drink all I want. Like, you know, looking back, I can see, like, it worked out perfectly. He didn't give me a hard time, and he didn't even drink that much. But we got in, he liked doing other things until eventually, you know, it started really progressing. That's what happened in 2017. And that's when I went to treatment for the first time.
So that kind of brings us full circle, which is interesting, because your story speaks of social use of alcohol. Let's say just the use part, and then as things get worse, or you start drinking more, you move into the misuse part. But it's still not bad enough that maybe you think you have a real problem, and then comes abuse.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you made that transition from use and social use of alcohol to abuse and really consequential use of alcohol within a very relatively short period of time.
Yeah. So after 2018, and then 2019, I was without a job all of 2019. And right at the very end, right before 2020 is when I moved back to Texas. Because then I was just kind of binge drinking. I would stop, but then I would binge drink, and it was just getting bad. So I was like, I'll move back to Texas. My dad was here. My sister was here. So it was basically like, then I'll be fine. You know, then maybe I won't drink as much.
Geographic cure.
A total geographic.
And it didn't work.
It did not work.
Yeah.
I mean, for a while, I could go for weeks, you know, even months without drinking if I had eyes on me.
Yeah.
But then when the eyes weren't on me, it was game on. And then, which led me to, you know, 2021. I was, you know, right before I got sober, I was in a hotel room for 4 days, just drinking to fall asleep, or to pass out, I should say.
What a story. Until
I couldn't do it anymore.
What a story.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and you know, with every story I hear and every interview I do, I think to myself, this is one of the most interesting, and yours just, again, it's like everything leapfrogs, and your story today has that kind of feel to it, and I'm so glad that you took the time to sit down with me and do this, because there's no telling who will listen to it and say, yeah, that I identify with that. And so if they identify with it, and then they see you've been sober now for
4 years, 11 months.
And 11 months, so you're going on 5 years. And how do you feel about your sobriety in general? Are you doing, I know you do a lot of service work.
I do a lot of service
work. You sponsor women.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I know, I always like to, I think I was always apprehensive about sharing my story, because I feel like I'm pretty textbook. You know, I could look back, you know, and I'm sure I've got plenty of war stories, nothing great, but I can really honestly look back and say, yeah, from the moment I first drank, I drank alcoholically.
Yeah.
And the progression was real. And it took years and years. And I have many moments, so many blackouts, so many, you know, I was always a binge drinker. And then until I was, and I just didn't do it all the time, until I was a daily drinker. And then eventually I became, then I just became dependent on it. And being able to be in this program and look at that, and to realize, I had to remove the alcohol. There was nothing I could do about it. Admitting and accepting I was an alcoholic was a big part of it. The acceptance part was the bigger part than admitting it. And then realizing the solution is right here. I just had to get the alcohol out of me before I could realize, like, just to live in these principles.
So you were doing the work required to stay sober.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
I'm still doing it, and I will. One of the things that a gentleman at one of my earlier meetings, he circled a word in the book, and then he said, "Go find it," and it was from Bill's story, where it talks about, My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a way of living which answered all my problems. And it was the word all. And I was like, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And so...
Sounds really true for you.
It is. I get excited about, like, I can understand how this works.
Yeah.
I see how it does. And, I'm going to continue to do that. Because it's the freedom and the peace that this gives me. And if I keep doing the next right thing, it'll keep me from picking up the next drink.
Sounds like that's a good level of protection to have for the future.
For sure.
Well, Maryrose, thank you so much for doing this today. And I'm sure that there will be people who listen to it. I encourage people to let their friends and sponsees and other people listen. Sometimes it's the best way to let people who don't know that much about you know more. But it may be the total stranger in another country in the world who hears it.
Yeah.
But either way, you did an excellent job, and I want to thank you again.
Thank you, Howard.
I look forward to us getting to know each other better. We've just kind of really connected within the last year or so.
We've only just begun.
Right, and I love your story, and I love you, and thank you for everything that you're doing for the program.
Thank you, Howard.
All
It's
right.
great to be here.
Good, we're done.
We're done.
Well, my friends, that's it for today's episode of AA Recovery Interviews. I want to thank my guest, Maryrose M., for sharing her story, and thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the interviews in this podcast series, please share it with others. This show is another helping hand of AA we can all extend to alcoholics everywhere. If you want to contact me directly with any comments, questions, or suggestions, simply email howard@aarecoveryinterviews.com. Please also take a minute to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube Music. By the way, this podcast strictly adheres to AA's 12 traditions and all General Service Office guidelines for safeguarding anonymity online. AA Recovery Interviews and my guests do not speak for or represent AA at large. This podcast is simply my way of giving back to AA, that which has been so freely given to me. The next episode of AA Recovery Interviews is on the way, so keep coming back. It'll be here soon.